Hi guys, thanks for joining this video. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beautiful little cottage right here, perfect for a game asset or 3D illustrations in general. If you're new to Blender, feel free to pause right here for some hotkeys and that I will be using through the video. So starting, you'll see this default setting. Let's press X to delete all of them, Shift A to add a cube, and this will be our little house. So let's tap into edit mode and then Control R to loop cut them. And I'll just bring it down a little bit to here and click face selection, Alt left click to select the whole loop, and then right click your mouse button to extrude from normals and make this little bumpy section right here. And now let's go to top view, Shift A to add mesh. Let's add a plane this time, and then grab Z. This will be our roof, so let's tap into edit mode and then make a loop again. Grab Z to bring this up so that it looks more like a roof somehow, and then grab Z and then we'll just move it down here. So now we have a pretty much house looking cottage, right? But I don't want the whole, so I'm gonna edge select these two edges and then hotkey F to create a face. And I will do both sides and also on the bottom. Great. Now we have a very low poly cottage. And then let's click into the roof again, tap into edit mode, Control R to make two loops, and then we'll just scale it to Y. Okay, once we have our face, let's select both sides and then press I to inset. And then we'll bring it down a little bit smaller, and then I'll just push the faces inwards so that we could create this nice little concave. Okay, so now we're gonna create the roof by clicking Shift A and then adding a round cube. And then I'm just gonna bring this up and then just scale it to a position where it just nicely sits on the center of the roof. And then go on to the front view and then SX and see how it just nicely sits on the center. And then now I'm just gonna Shift D to duplicate it, Z 90 degrees. Let's move it down a little bit, and I'm just gonna make the sides here. So let's just duplicate them and then make them fit to the roof, and then we'll just rotate them so that it matches the slant area on the roof right there. Nice. I'm just gonna scale it up a little bit, or maybe I'll just scale the middle part a little bit more so that it just kind of links better, like that. Perfect. And I'm just gonna bring this a little bit closer, and then I'll Shift D the both of them to duplicate and then rotate Y again to make it sit nicely on the other side as well. So take your time doing this. Nothing is perfect. Just take your time on adjusting every little details that you like. I'm basically eyeballing everything here, so you could do that too. And I don't really like how square looking the bottom part is, so maybe I'll just scale Z and bring it down a little bit. And then let's just do the same technique, loop cut, and then extrude from normal so that we could get that little bumpiness right there. Okay, let's Shift A again, and then this time I'm gonna add a cylinder, and then rotate Y 90 degrees, and then bring it down a little bit. Yeah, and then scale X so that I could extend it a little bit longer to the other side as well. And I'm just gonna click this, scale it a little more. It doesn't look super aligned, but I think that looks alright. So let's tap into edit mode again and then face select half of the cylinders, and then Shift D, release it, press P to separate selection, and then now what you have is a perfect section that sits on the cylinder. And we'll just select that section and then apply a solidify modifier to it. And then just bring it up a little bit. Oh, it's not balanced, so let's pull that to x-axis a little bit. Yeah, and then scale it up. Nice. And then we have something like this. Okay, so we're gonna just Shift D, and then we're making the tile here. So apply the modifier, tap into that little thingy, and then Control R to make a loop cut. We'll delete the other faces. Right, and then so we have this tile looking thing remaining. And I'm just gonna pull it to fill in the gaps between the cylinder and the side of the roof. And I want it to be slanted, so let's rotate that a little bit. But I don't want it perfectly like parallel because we're gonna apply an array modifier to it. So just something like that. So I'm adding an array modifier to this tile so that we don't have to like copy and paste everything every time. It's too not efficient, right? So if you scale on the X, it moves on the X, and if you scale on the Y, it scale on the Y. It's just as straightforward as that, okay? So let's increase the count to 3 and then scale it down a little bit. Nice. And then I'm just gonna Shift D and pull it in on the other side as well. And then once this looks okay, just go ahead and hit the apply button. Cool. I'm just gonna select this and select one tile by pressing Shift L so that it's like select linked, and just Shift D to duplicate and then grab Y to pull it there. Okay, I'm not really liking this placement. I'll do it again. And then grab Y and then scale it down a little bit so that it just perfectly sits in the middle. Nice. I think this looks pretty good for now. And I'm just gonna select all of them and then Shift D and then RZ and then 180 degrees. And then we have both sides. Voila. Okay. Okay, so let's make the chimney. Shift A, add a cube again, and then we'll scale it down. And I'm just trying to scale and move it so that it just fits perfectly in the corner. Tap into edit mode, face select the top one, GZ to bring it up. And then I'll do two methods. First is E, extrude, and then bring it up. Or we could do loop cut and then SZ, and then I'll bring it up as well. Now I'll extrude normal but bringing it down, and then extrude normal again but bringing it up. And then I to inset, grab Z to pull it down, and then I'll do I again, extrude Z to make it like a chimney. So now we have this, but I don't like that it's a very sharp looking chimney. I'm just gonna edge select, Control B to bevel, and same with the edges. So I'm just here selecting all of them. And then again, we'll tap Control B, wheel up to bring more sections, and then now we have a more rounded, soft looking like chimney. Okay, nice. So what we're gonna do now is make a window. So let's add a cube again, and then I'll just bring it to the side so that it's easier to look. And then put it in isolation mode, SY, SX, and then I'll just put a loop cut here, and like that. And then we'll select both sides, insect by I, and then right click loop tool, and then bridge. So now we have a window looking thing. And then we'll just apply the same technique to all three sides. And then we have a window. But I'm just gonna add a little loop cut in the middle of these sections so that we can make glass later that has emission and glow to it. So I'm just gonna edge select them and then press F to face. It's the same technique as how we just kind of create a face for the roof. And then I'll just bring it down. So just really take your time to kind of scale and grab by pressing S and G. And then just fixate them to the position that you like. You can play with the placements. It doesn't have to be this shape of window. You can make it skinnier, fatter, whatsoever. And I'm just going to Shift D here to duplicate and bring it to the X-axis so that they have a double window right here. And I want another window on the other side, so I'm just going to Shift D again. And then along the Y-axis, rotate it. And then I want this to look a little bit like wider and shorter. That's why I'm scaling it on the X-axis. Bring it down. Okay, now the windows are done. Let's go to make a door. So by doing that, Shift A, I'm gonna add a cylinder for this one. And let's go into toggle X-ray mode. We'll see this little icon here, right? And I will just delete half of the cylinder and then extrude. And then press F to link up the faces. And let's press F on both sides so that we just close off the holes. I'll scale this down and then again just take your time to scale and grab it so that it's more to your liking. I just want this to be slightly thinner. And then I'll press I here, bring it down a little bit, and E to extrude so that we can get this double door visuals right here. And I'm trying to make a doorknob, so let's add another cylinder, but this time I don't need so many sides, so I'll just decrease it to 12. Rotate it again, bring it down, and make it skinnier. And the easiest way is that in preset, there is a torus that we could add by Shift A again. And then let's bring this down. And I'll rotate it a little bit so that it doesn't really like perfectly lies 90 degrees. Just like that. Oh, wrong axis. Okay, I'll just bring this up a little bit. And maybe I'll want to inset and extrude that little face here. Just bring it up a little bit. And then extrude by E. Perfect. Kind of looks like a doorknob, the very Eastern kind. And then I'll just bring it down. Perfect. I think we're good. And then if you all have noticed, I intentionally brought my door a little bit higher than the rim because I want to add staircase for my house. So let's add a cube, scale it down, and then again we'll use the array modifier method just like the tiles. But first I'll just scale this down, bring it out, and then just adjust it to your likings, really. And then once you think the gap is fine, just increase the count number. I think 3 is enough. Let's see what it looks like with 4. Okay, maybe not. Maybe 3 is good. I don't like how sharp edges they look, so I want it to be like a little bit more cozy, round, and cutesy, so I'm just selecting the edge and control bevel right here. Control B. Okay, so I want to add a little small deck to the window, if that is what it's called. So I'm just going to loop cut the house itself and then make a little selection here and then just extrude so that it looks like it has a mini deck. And then for this side as well, we'll just have to loop cut it so that it looks perfectly fitted to the windows. Just keep adding them and dragging them along. The more you do it, you'll get the hang of it. And I think this looks pretty good, but I think the front looks a little bit plain, so let's add in loop cuts again. Just want to make a little extruded area on the front or maybe at the corners, so that we just add a little bit more character to this cottage. Should add a loop cut here to make sure it's balanced. Okay, I think this looks pretty cute. And then let's extrude. Oh, let's do it again. Extrude along normals. And ta-da! I'm just gonna bevel the edges again because I want it to look more round and soft. And here is really where you could customize a little bit more of your little cottage by pressing extrude, pressing I to inset, and then just scaling, rotating, grabbing. It's all of these simple techniques that brings your house to life. Okay, so now I want to add smoke to the chimney. So I'm just gonna Shift A, add a meatball. And later you'll know why I add a meatball. And then let's just duplicate it, not too far away, to create this kind of linkage between the two little balls. And then let's Shift D, add a little small one on top of them. And I'm just gonna take my time here and then just position it to my likings, really. Yeah. I think this looks pretty good. Now let's make the base. So I'll just add a cylinder, but to make it a hexagon, I'm just gonna have it 6 sides. And then position it to center, bring it down, and then scale it by Z-axis to give some volume. And then I'll just add a loop cut, and then extrude along normals again. And I don't like how sharp edging it looks, so I'm just gonna bevel it. Okay, select all the sides and Control B. But I do see we overlap the face here, so I'm just gonna select that, bring it down. And I want to shade smooth this so that it has more of that soft bubble look. Great. Okay. I'm trying to make some broken wooden steps in front of the door, so just add a cube and then let's go into isolation mode, add in a bunch of loop cuts, and then select one vertex, and I'll press Ctrl B V and then stretch out the vertex. And I'll just delete the face between these 4 vertex and then restructure them. Just grab them so it creates that sharper cut look. And then we'll do it on the other side again, Control B V, and just grab G. You could double click G so that it fixes along the axis of the object itself. And just play around it because no wood is perfect and we're trying to get that imperfect look right here. So we want more like damaged corners and then imperfect lines. And then just play with a little bit more with a Control Bevel V. And then now we're just gonna tap O. And then you'll see this little wheel here. Whenever we just grab something, the area within the wheel would also be affected. And we now have a wooden looking thing. So let's tap out of isolation mode and then just Shift D to duplicate. And then I don't want it to be so perfectly aligned, so I'm just trying to rotate and play around with the placements right here. I think that looks pretty good, but it's a little bit off-centered. I know I'm trying to be imperfect right here, but I just really want to try and eyeball everything. I think this looks okay. The base looks a little off-center, so I'm just gonna tweak it a little bit. And let's just go ahead and add in some rocks. So again, a cube. Let's tap into isolation mode again. And then let's create some loop cuts. And it's same as the wood. We just pick a vertex, control bevel V, and then just to create these faces. And cause I haven't switched off the O button, so that whatever I grab right now, the surroundings within the wheel would also be affected. And there's really no rules and certainties in how to create a rock looking rock, because we're doing more low poly stuff here, right? So as long as you feel like it looks kind of like a rock, then we're kind of good to go. I usually really enjoy this process because every rock I make is pretty different. And then it's just fun to not really have to think too much about it. I think this looks pretty much like a rock right now. It's a very low poly rock, but it'll do its job. So let's tap out of isolation mode, and then I'll just grab and then shift duplicate, and then now we'll rotate and then scale it in different axes so that it's a slightly different rock each time. Just keep duplicating them and then just position them. You really don't have to follow what I'm doing right here. I'm just like free flowing, and so as you should, because this is more of a creative process. And just have fun. Okay, I still feel like it's a little bit empty here, so I'm just trying to make a mini garden. So let's go ahead, add in a cube again, scale it down, make it thinner, and then duplicate so that we have 2 garden lands. I'm just gonna add an icosphere here to pretend to be a low poly veggie crop. Maybe let's go for a carrot here. So let's tap into isolation mode, select a vertex, and then just shift D to duplicate, release, and then P, a separate selection. And then remember to get into vertex mode so that you can just extrude, and then just make it like the leaves that pops out of the carrot, right? I know it doesn't really look like it, but let's just try mimicking. Oh, I still have that O selection on, so let's just close that. And then continue using E to extrude and then create curves and stuff. Not really curves, but just like branches that comes out of the icosphere. It looks like a chicken feet. But we'll soon do the magic when we apply the skin modifier. And then tab into edit mode, Control A. Remember to select all by pressing A before you do Control A. And so we scale it down. So by selecting part of the vertex and then Control A, you could adjust the thickness of the skin modifier. And then I'm just going to X-ray toggle mode so that I could see the vertex clearer. Yep. And then I'll add a subdivision modifier to smooth everything out. It still really looks like a chicken feet, so I'm just gonna grab outer vertices and then just Control A and then thicken it so that it gives more of the cartoony look. And then just feel free to press G to grab and make all the movements a little bit more naturaler. I know we're going more of a cartoon vibe here, but yeah. Control A, and then let's bring this down. Okay, this is closer to what I want it to look like. And if it's good, then just hit apply for both modifiers and then just exit toggle X-ray mode. And then we'll just bring this down, scale it up. And then we'll shift D to put this little fidgy part to the other carrot. Last but not least, let's just set up the camera. Shift A and you see the camera settings, pull it up by GZ. And then what I usually do is try to put it as close as your own viewpoint, and you see the little camera icon there. And then let's get into the camera mode, and then within there you'll just tweak the distance and how your camera would possibly look like. I'm in perspective mode right here. We could always change it to the other mode, which is more of an isometric view, but I like the perspective mode more. So again, it's a preference thing, but now we'll go back to perspective mode. And let's bring this a little bit closer, just play with it to be fair. And we're done. Just hit Ctrl S to save your files, and congratulations, you made it to part 1. And I promise you part 2 is gonna be a lot easier and a lot shorter, because we're just gonna put on materials and then put on the render settings and boom, you're done. Really good job, guys. And thank you again for watching. Hope we see you in the next video. Bye bye.